It looks like a giant egg beater bolted to a hillside in the Netherlands. It has no propeller. It doesn't sweep the sky like every wind turbine you've ever seen. And in a direct head-to-head test in 2024, an array of these strange machines produced more energy per acre of land than the conventional three-blade turbines sitting right next to them. Meanwhile, off the coast of Norway, engineers are building a floating wall of small turbines stacked in a grid that they claim generates more power per square meter of ocean than any offshore wind farm on Earth. And in a wind tunnel in California, a company is testing a turbine shaped like a tulip that starts generating electricity at wind speeds where normal turbines just sit there doing nothing. The wind industry spent 40 years converging on one design: 3 blades, horizontal axis, tall tower. It became so standard that every wind farm on Earth looks basically identical. But over the last 3 years, a wave of radically strange turbine designs has started beating that standard in specific conditions. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which weird turbines are actually winning, the physics that lets them do it, and the hard limit that means they'll never fully replace the three-blade giants. Let's get into it. Real quick before we dig in, if you're the kind of person who wants the actual engineering behind the headlines instead of the marketing version, subscribe. I put out a new deep dive every week, breaking down the energy technology that's actually going to matter. And if this video earns it by the end, it genuinely helps the channel more than you'd think. Okay, let's talk about why every wind turbine looks the same and why that's suddenly changing. Here's why this matters right now. Wind power is the single largest source of new clean electricity being added to grids worldwide. But conventional wind has a geography problem. The best three-blade turbines need tall towers, open land or open ocean, strong, steady wind, and lots of space between units so they don't steal each other's wind. That works great in West Texas and the North Sea. It works terribly in cities, on rooftops, in mountainous terrain, near homes, and in the turbulent low-speed wind that covers most of the actual planet. If strange turbine designs can unlock wind energy in all the places conventional turbines can't go, that roughly doubles the total addressable area for wind power on Earth. That's not a small improvement. That's a fundamental expansion of where clean energy can be generated. And the companies figuring this out right now are going to define a whole new category of the energy industry. Let me set up the physics because you can't understand why these strange designs work without it. Every wind turbine is governed by something called the Betz limit. In 1919, a German physicist named Albert Betz proved mathematically that no wind turbine can ever capture more than 59.3% of the kinetic energy in the wind passing through it. The reason is simple once you see it. If a turbine captured 100% of the wind's energy, the air would have to stop completely behind the turbine. But if the air stopped, it would pile up and block more air from coming through. So there's a mathematical sweet spot where you slow the wind down enough to extract energy, but not so much that you choke off the flow. That sweet spot is 59.3%. Every turbine ever built operates somewhere below it. The best modern three-blade turbines hit about 45 to 50% real-world efficiency, remarkably close to the theoretical maximum. This is why the industry standardized on 3 blades. It turns out 3 long, thin blades sweeping a huge circular area is the most efficient way to approach the Betz limit for a given amount of expensive material. 2 blades is slightly less stable. 4 blades adds cost without much benefit. 3 is the sweet spot. So for utility-scale wind where efficiency per dollar is everything, 3-blade horizontal axis turbines won and never looked back. But, and this is the key insight, the Betz limit is about efficiency, not about where you can install the thing. And in the real world, installation flexibility often matters more than raw efficiency. That's the door the strange designs walk through. That's where it gets genuinely interesting. Because there are now 4 categories of strange turbine, and each one solves a different problem the 3-blade design can't touch. The first is the vertical axis wind turbine, or VAWT. Instead of a propeller facing into the wind, imagine an egg beater, or a set of curved blades spinning around a vertical pole. The genius of this design is that it doesn't care which direction the wind comes from. A conventional turbine has to physically rotate its entire nacelle to face the wind using motors and sensors. A vertical axis turbine accepts wind from any direction instantly, with no repositioning. That makes it perfect for turbulent, shifting urban wind that changes direction constantly. It also puts the heavy generator at the bottom, at ground level, where it's easy to maintain, instead of 300 feet up in the air. The Dutch company that makes the egg beater-looking machines, along with several others, has shown that in dense installations, vertical axis turbines can be packed much closer together than horizontal ones. Here's why that matters enormously. Conventional turbines create a wake of turbulent, slowed-down air behind them, so you have to space them 7 to 10 rotor diameters apart, wasting huge amounts of land. Some vertical axis designs actually benefit from being close together. The spinning of one turbine can accelerate the wind into its neighbor, like a school of fish drafting off each other. Caltech researchers demonstrated that closely packed vertical turbines could generate up to 10 times more power per acre of land than conventional wind farms, even though each individual turbine is less efficient. Less efficient per turbine, more efficient per acre. That's the trade that's winning. The second category is the bladeless oscillating design. I covered this in the bladeless wind episode, But it belongs here too because it's genuinely one of the strangest machines ever built. The Spanish company Vortex Bladeless makes a tapered vertical mast that has no blades and no rotating parts at all. It works by exploiting the same physics that famously destroyed the Tacoma Narrows Bridge in 1940, vortex shedding. When wind flows past a cylinder, it sheds alternating swirls of air off each side, creating an oscillating push. The mast is tuned to resonate with those oscillations, so it wobbles back and forth, and that motion drives a generator at the base. No blades to kill birds, no noise, no gearbox to maintain. It generates less power than a bladed turbine of the same size, but it's cheap, silent, and can be installed in dense clusters in places bladed turbines are banned. For distributed, off-grid, and residential applications, it opens a door that was previously locked. The third category is the multi-rotor array. This is the Norwegian ocean design, and it's the most visually stunning of all. Instead of one enormous turbine with 300-foot blades, imagine a floating rectangular frame the size of a football field standing on end, filled with a grid of over 100 small turbines. Wind catching systems, the Norwegian company building it, calls it the wind catcher. Their claim is bold. A single unit standing over 300 meters tall could generate enough electricity for 80,000 homes and produce 5 times the annual energy of the world's single largest conventional turbine while occupying a fraction of the ocean footprint. How? Several clever tricks. Small blades can spin faster and be packed densely. The array creates aerodynamic interactions between the small rotors that boost overall capture. The whole structure is shorter and more stable on the water than a single giant turbine, which makes it survive storms better and cheaper to maintain. And because the small turbines are modular, you can replace or service one without shutting down the whole system. The first commercial-scale windcatcher prototype is being deployed in Norwegian waters, and if the real-world numbers match the models, it rewrites offshore wind economics. The fourth category is the small wind aesthetic redesign, and the poster child is flower turbines. They make vertical axis turbines shaped like tulips, designed to be visually beautiful rather than industrial. This sounds like a gimmick until you understand the strategy. A huge barrier to distributed wind isn't engineering. It's that people think turbines are ugly and noisy, so they block them in their neighborhoods, businesses, and cities. By making a turbine that looks like public art, Flower Turbine sidesteps the aesthetic objection entirely. Their tulip design starts spinning at very low wind speeds, around 1.5 meters per second, where conventional turbines are still motionless. And they can be clustered in artistic arrangements that, like the Caltech research showed, actually improve each other's performance. They're now installed at commercial sites, transit stations, and campuses across Europe and the US. It's engineering in service of getting past human psychology, which is often the real bottleneck in energy. Quick question for you, because I'm genuinely curious how you're weighing this. If you could install one of these on your own property, a silent bladeless mast, a compact eggbeater vertical turbine, or an artistic tulip cluster, which would you actually put in your yard? Or would you still rather just put up solar panels and skip wind entirely at the home scale? Drop your answer in the comments. I read them, and the home wind versus solar debate is one I find genuinely unsettled. Okay, here's where I have to pump the brakes because the strange turbine story comes wrapped in a lot of hype, and you need the catches. There are 5 big ones. First, the Betz limit is undefeated. None of these designs beat the fundamental physics. When a company claims their weird turbine is more efficient, dig into what they mean. Almost always they mean more energy per acre, or more energy in turbulent wind, or more energy at low wind speeds, not more efficient at converting a given parcel of wind into electricity. The vertical axis turbines are typically 35 to 40% efficient per turbine versus 45 to 50% for 3-blade. They win on packing density and installation flexibility, not on raw physics. Any claim that sounds like free energy is marketing. Second, the track record is genuinely bad. Vertical axis wind turbines are not new. They've been tried repeatedly since the 1920s, and the wind industry abandoned them for utility-scale use for good engineering reasons. Mainly that the blades experience constant stress reversals as they rotate, causing metal fatigue and mechanical failures. The old designs shook themselves apart. Modern materials and computational modeling have solved a lot of this, but the history means you should be skeptical of any company promising the moon. Several vertical axis startups have already failed in the last decade. Third, scale is unproven. The Norwegian windcatcher looks spectacular in renderings, but as of now, the full-scale commercial version is still being proven in the real ocean. Renderings are not revenue. The gap between an impressive animation and a machine that survives 20 years of North Sea storms while generating reliable power is exactly where most ambitious energy hardware dies. I want to see multi-year field data before I believe the 5 times the energy claim. Fourth, the economics at small scale are brutal. Distributed and residential wind, no matter how clever the design, has to compete with rooftop solar, which has gotten absurdly cheap. For most homeowners in most locations, solar produces more energy per dollar than any small wind turbine, strange or conventional. The strange turbines win specifically in high wind sites, in places where solar doesn't work well, or where wind and solar complement each other because the wind blows hardest at night and in winter when solar is weak. But in a straight cost fight in an average location, small wind usually loses to solar. Fifth, the density boost research is promising but not fully commercialized. The Caltech finding that closely packed vertical turbines can generate 10 times more power per acre is real and peer-reviewed. But scaling that from a research demonstration to reliable commercial wind farms is still in progress. The interaction effects that boost performance are sensitive to spacing, terrain, and wind conditions. It works in the lab. Making it work as a bankable commercial product across many sites is the hard part that remains. All right, here's what I actually think after 8 years working in renewable energy and watching every wind cycle come and go. 1. The strange turbines are real and they matter, but not as a replacement for three-blade giants. Utility-scale wind on open land and open ocean will stay dominated by conventional horizontal axis turbines through 2040 and almost certainly beyond. The Betz limit and material efficiency make three blades the winner where you have space and steady wind. That's settled. 2. The real opportunity is the enormous set of places conventional wind can't go. Cities, rooftops, highway medians, mountainous terrain, dense distributed installations, turbulent low-speed wind zones. That's a genuinely huge market, and it's been essentially locked to wind energy for 40 years. The strange designs are the key to that lock. 3. Of the 4 categories, I think closely packed vertical axis arrays have the strongest fundamental case, because the Caltech density research gives them a real physics-based advantage per acre that isn't just marketing. The Norwegian multi-rotor wind catcher is the highest risk, highest reward play. If it delivers, it's transformative for offshore, and if it doesn't, it becomes a cautionary tale. I'd put it at maybe 40% odds of hitting its claims at commercial scale by 2030. 4. The aesthetic redesign approach, the tulip turbines, is underrated. It sounds frivolous, but solving the human psychology barrier to distributed wind might unlock more real-world deployment than any pure efficiency gain. Sometimes the bottleneck isn't the engineering, it's whether people will let you install the thing. 5. My honest overall take. Strange turbines become a meaningful but minority slice of wind energy, maybe 5 to 10% of total wind capacity by 2035, concentrated entirely in the distributed and urban and specialty markets. Not a revolution that topples the three-blade giants, but a real expansion of where wind can exist at all. And that expansion matters. What would I do with this information? I'm watching 3 specific signals. First, whether the Norwegian windcatcher's real ocean data matches its renderings when the prototype runs for a full year. Second, whether any company successfully commercializes the Caltech close packing density boost into a repeatable, bankable wind farm product. And third, whether building codes and city zoning start allowing distributed vertical turbines at scale, because the regulation is often the real bottleneck, not the technology. I've been wrong about wind before. I thought offshore would be cheaper than onshore by now, and it isn't. So the strange turbines could underdeliver too. But the core insight, that installation flexibility can matter more than raw efficiency in the places that need power. That's solid engineering logic, not hype. So here's what to remember. 1. Every wind turbine obeys the Betz limit of 59.3%, and three-blade horizontal designs win on raw efficiency where you have space and steady wind. 2. Strange designs, vertical axis, bladeless, multi-rotor arrays, and aesthetic redesigns win not on efficiency, but on where they can be installed and how densely. 3. Caltech research shows closely packed vertical turbines can produce up to 10 times more energy per acre despite being less efficient individually. 4. The Norwegian windcatcher multi-rotor design is the highest risk, highest reward play in the entire space. 5. These designs expand wind into cities, rooftops, and turbulent zones, roughly doubling where wind can exist, but they won't replace the three-blade giants on open land and ocean. If this changed how you see wind energy, or just gave you a clearer picture of what's actually happening beyond the three-blade standard, the like button is the only signal YouTube gives me that this kind of deep dive is landing. Hit it. And if you've got a friend who thinks all wind turbines are basically the same, send them this video. The reality is a lot stranger and a lot more interesting than the identical white giants we've all gotten used to. Next week, I want to dig into solid-state solar panels. The claim that a new material is about to make silicon panels obsolete. The material science is genuinely more interesting than either the hype or the skepticism suggests. And I'll show you exactly where it stands. I'm Jack. I'll see you next week.